people start needing the problems in their life. And the arousal of those chemicals then narrows our focus on matter. And we focus on the particle in quantum physics, and we take away possibility. And so we started to realize that when people go from a narrow focus to an open focus, and when they begin to pay attention to that field, they stay present with it, they experience it, they become more aware of it. Moment by moment by moment, there'll come a moment where all of a sudden they'll begin to connect to it. Now, the hormones of stress create separation. There's me here and there's you there, and there's space and distance between us. And then there's me here, and then there's my future and my dreams way over there. And I got to drag my body through space to get to my dreams, and it's going to take time. And that's the world of Newtonian physics. And the more separation we have between 2 points of consciousness, the more distance we have between 2 points of consciousness, the more time it's going to take for me to get there. If I'm in Mexico City and I say I want to get to Dallas and I'm going to walk, well, I'm going to drag my body through space, and it's going to take me a long time to get there. 1 point of consciousness, Mexico City, the other point of consciousness, Dallas. My body moves through space, it takes time. Well, in the quantum, it's kind of opposite, because in this three-dimensional world, there's an infinite amount of space. Space is the commodity, and we experience time moving through space. But in the quantum, there's an infinite amount of time. Time is eternal. And if time is eternal in that realm, imagine if you had all the time in the world. You can get anything done you wanted to, right?
Yes.
They're only equal to your imagination. And so then, as you as a consciousness, as you go from a somebody to a nobody, as someone to no one, from something to nothing, from somewhere to nowhere, from sometime to no time, and you become pure consciousness, as our students begin to connect to that field, and they begin to pay attention to it and surrender to it and stay present with it and go deeper into it, their consciousness is moving closer to the consciousness of the unified field. And as you begin to move closer and closer to it, the signature of the unified field is oneness and wholeness, which means you experience less separation and you experience more wholeness. And if you feel more whole, you feel like you already have everything you want. And so no, you're no longer creating from duality or polarity or lack. And as you get closer and closer to that unified field, there's less separation between 2 points of consciousness, then there's less time, which means it starts happening in a shorter amount of time. So we started doing these week-long events because I realized, boy, after 4 days, people are connecting and having these amazing experiences. What would happen if we had them for a week? And that's what we're starting to see now, instantaneous, miraculous changes. And that's where we're at. I believe in this concept called information, the transformation. I now know, without a doubt, Humberto,
Yes.
if you give people sound scientific information, and science is the contemporary language of mysticism. It
Correct.
is.
Correct.
Science demystifies the mystical. And you combine a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, a little neuroendocrinology, a little psychoneuroimmunology, a little epigenetics, a little brainwave technology. And people, as they're embracing that information, and it's current. Now, it's not enough to just listen to it, because you learn it, you make new connections in your brain. But then we ask our students to turn to the person next to them and explain it. If you can't explain it, it's not wired in your brain. So then they begin to build a model of understanding, firing and wiring, firing and wiring. And as they begin to make their brain fire in new sequences and new patterns and new combinations, they're changing their mind. Mind is the brain in action. So if we keep reminding them of these models and they can explain it, they're installing the neurological hardware in their brain in preparation for the experience. And the more they understand what they're doing and why, the how gets easier. So then, if I can set up the conditions in the environment immediately right afterwards, and nothing's left to conjecture, nothing's left to superstition, nothing's left to dogma.
Yes.
You understand exactly what you're doing and why. And you give the people the proper instruction, and they feel safe enough to do it. And I have 750 people or 1,000 people or 1,500 people, a community of people all doing it at the same time. A certain percentage of those people are going to get their behaviors to match their intentions and their actions equal to their thoughts. And when they do, they're going to have some type of transformation, a change in form. Well, if I could measure their transformation like we did, then I have more information to teach transformation the next time. And if I can measure that transformation, I have more information to teach transformation the next time. So all of a sudden you start closing the gap between knowledge and experience. So there's a momentum when you get a community of people together. And they're not busy on their cell phones or their computers or taking care of their kids. They are focused, and they're focused on creating a new future. And after looking at 8,000 some odd brain scans, I can tell you that you are at your absolute best when you get beyond yourself, period. That is a fact. So you get all of a sudden now people starting to break through. And we start at 6 in the morning and we go to 6 in the evening or 7 in the evening. Nobody complains. It's fun. And some days we're up at 4 in the morning because that is when the brain chemistry is right for the mystical. And people show up because they want the mystical more than their sleep.
Yes.
So if we get a community of people doing this, and the first day, it's a little bit of a challenge to break past your emotions and your frustration and your habits and all the voices in your head. But if you keep going, all of a sudden, there's a momentum. And people just start letting go. And so in 4 days, well, Saturday or Sunday, the energy of the room was off the chart. People were standing up that had all kinds of amazing healings. And I thought, what if we had 3 more days of this? We could move mountains. What happens with most people is that I believe that you learn the most about yourself and you learn the most about others when they're outside their comfort zone.
True.
Or when we're outside our comfort zone. So then all of this is like to get people to the point where they believe in themselves. And when you believe in yourself, you believe in possibility. And when you take a person who says, I don't think I can do that, and you say, well, why don't you just climb up and see how you do? And then they climb up, and then you say, why don't you just get up there? And, it's all safe, and it's, there's a ton of support.
But if you're afraid of heights, it freaks you out.
But if you go further than where you normally go, there's a release of energy.
Yes.
And that release of energy is free energy. That's available energy for you to create a new future. That's available energy to heal. So in these week-longs, we've had 2 so far. I'll show you some of the videos when we break here, and it's really powerful, really powerful. And to challenge people to that measure, and to get them to believe in themselves, there's no greater drug.
Yeah.
There's just no greater feeling. And then imagine, you're up there and it's not competitive. Everybody is down there cheering you on and loving you.
Yeah, you're right.
You can do this. And, people in their 80s, do that. And then when it comes to the walking meditation, they heal their body in 1 hour, walking as their future self. It's who you become in the process. Because every person that had a spontaneous remission, and I've interviewed so many of them in our work, they'll tell you that my disease was my greatest teacher. They'll tell you it wasn't my mother, it wasn't my father who was abusive, it wasn't my uncle, who was abusive. It's just who I became in the process. You can't take that away from a person. Because it's not the wealth, it's you become the very thing. And so people are starting to wrap their mind around these concepts. And when you start understanding that, the only thing you want is the unknown. In stress, you run from the unknown. When your heart is open, you crave it. It's an adventure. And so people are evolving because of it, and they're doing the work. And we have the evidence to show that common people around the world are doing the uncommon.